Joining us now on the program is another nonprofit in our local area that's supporting a whole lot of people. One of over 300 charities and nonprofits supported on the Share Detroit platform is S.A.Y. Detroit. And joining us on today's program is their Executive Director, Richard Kelley. Richard, thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Tyler. Great to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you on. To start things off, tell us a little bit about yourself and the organization, the history of S.A.Y. Detroit.
Absolutely, I would love to. And thank you as well to our partners, Share Detroit, for thinking of us and including us as part of this today. But yeah, so I am a native Southeast Michigander, grew up in the area here, went to Michigan State University, spent a little time out west, but realized quickly that the Midwest was my home and longingly looked forward to getting back to the Detroit area and working here and raising my family. And so I was happy to learn of this opportunity a few years ago with S.A.Y. Detroit, and about all the great work that they do in the community here. Sort of a best kept secret, I like to say, Tyler, but we're getting bigger and bigger and more people are learning about us. But S.A.Y. Detroit was founded by author and philanthropist Mitch Albom, who's a Detroiter here, has lived here for many years. And we go back to when the Super Bowl was in Detroit. Mitch was very close with Dr. Chad Audi, who's the head of the Detroit Rescue Mission Ministries. And during the Super Bowl time, if you remember, the weather was really bad back in 2006. And the city of Detroit sort of rounded up all the homeless people and put them at one of Chad's shelters. And Mitch had learned about this and said, well, that's not right, in an effort, I guess, to make our city look better when we were going to have guests from out of town. And Mitch went down and spent a night at the homeless shelter, and he wanted to learn more about the people that were there and what was going on with their situation. And he tells a story of when he was checking into the homeless shelter, just like everybody else, one of the guys in line turned around and said, "Aren't you Mitch Albom?" And he said, "Yes, I am." And he said, "What happened to you?" And that really resonated with Mitch, that we're all just one bad incident away from being in a very different situation in our lives than we are in today. And that was really the birth of S.A.Y. Detroit. After that visit to the shelter, Mitch wrote a column that weekend that the Detroit had rounded up our homeless and put them at a shelter. And what happens when the Super Bowl goes away? We just send them back on the streets. And what is their care going to look like? And so they determined that it would cost around $60,000 or so to keep everybody in the shelter through at least the spring when things started to get warm again. And so his column actually raised over $350,000 to support the Detroit Rescue Mission Ministries. And really, that was the birth of S.A.Y. Detroit. And so a lot of people ask us, what does S.A.Y. stand for? What is S.A.Y. Detroit? S.A.Y. stands for Super All Year. So we're not just super one day a year or one weekend a year, but how do we keep that going all year long?
And you mentioned Mitch Albom finding the organization. He's also still heavily involved in all the work that you're doing with, say, Detroit in the Detroit area to support the community in a number of different ways. Just how connected is Mitch to this organization, even today, over a decade since it was founded?
Mitch is incredible. The amount of things he has going on in his life is really is something to see, and I've learned a lot from being with him. But he's involved in everything. He's involved in the day-to-day of our organization. He and I were just speaking yesterday about a few ideas. Mitch is someone. One thing I loved about coming to S.A.Y. Detroit is I often heard from funders or partners that the reason they support us and like what we do is we're an organization that gets things done. And that's where I think Mitch shines the brightest, is he has such a good pulse on the community and what's going on in the community. And we're a small enough and young enough organization that we have the ability to pivot and kind of deal with things that are real time happening today. Whether that be some social justice initiatives that we're involved in, after the George Floyd incident and murder a few summers ago and the unrest that caused, we were able to immediately pivot our charity a little bit and do some things to have an impact in that area as well. So Mitch is very involved. In addition to S.A.Y. Detroit, he has an orphanage in Haiti that he goes to every single month, has not missed 1 month through COVID or anything. And so we just try to keep up with Mitch because he is an amazing ambassador for our community, and he really is the driving force behind what we do here.
two places you can find more information on Say Detroit. You can go to Share Detroit's website on sharedetroit.org and search Say Detroit under their Find a Nonprofit section, or go straight to the Say Detroit website at S-A-Y Detroit, saydetroit.org for more information. Joining us on the program today is their Executive Director, Richard Kelley. And Richard, looking at your website and all the things that Say Detroit does, and really figuring out a way to keep Detroit super all year, as your organization is named. It's about working with people in all different facets in the Detroit area, whether it's children, whether it's adults, veterans, seniors, and so on. There's so many different pathways to success that are inspired by, Say Detroit. What is a pathway to success? What does that look like?
Well, I'm so glad you asked me. We recently went through some strategic planning, Tyler, at our organization, because we were doing a lot, and we needed a good way. As I mentioned before, Say Detroit was kind of a best kept secret in our community, and when people would ask us, "What do you do?" we would we would start to tell the story, but the story was a long story. So we said, "How can we make that a little bit shorter?" But so we really worked hard with our board to come up with kind of a new mission statement for ourselves. And that's where this pathways comes from. And, when you look around and, where I grew up in Southeast Michigan is I had a lot of opportunities presented to me to help, whether it was navigate my way into college or into the working world or to volunteer or give back to the community. And we realized that a lot of the communities that we serve did not offer these pathways or make them as easy to find for a lot of our constituents. And so we realized that a lot of what we did, our physical entities, whether it's an after school program or a free health clinic, were really providing these pathways to the citizens who needed them most. And so, pathways can look very different for a lot of people, but for us, it's, for the kids we serve at our Say Play Center, it's a pathway to a successful life, to happiness. If college is in their dreams, how can we help them, find that path? If they want to get to work right away and support their family, and how can we help them find that path right away? If it's healthcare we're talking about, and living a more healthy lifestyle, or helping new moms with newborns and providing resources for that, providing, like I said, those pathways to success. So.
And Richard, there's so many different resources that do go into providing those pathways to success to individuals, certainly to families as well. Elaborate for us on some of those resources that Say Detroit does provide to these families in the Detroit area, and how they get access to these resources.
Absolutely. Well, I think I'd start with our kind of two biggest physical entities that we have. And one of those is the Say Detroit Play Center in Detroit, which is an after school program for kids in really the Metro Detroit area. But really all over Detroit. We're very blessed that we have a fleet of buses. And to keep it real simple, we pick kids up from school, we bring them to the center, we provide a warm meal to kids, many of whom are facing food insecurity issues. We then provide a safe environment for learning. And whether that's homework help or tutoring or just general educational assistance, they get that help at our center. And when they're done with that and they're doing a good job in their schoolwork, they then have their use of our facility. And our facility has wonderful sporting venues, a beautiful football field, a basketball court, but we also have a lot in the arts. So a recording studio, a music studio, a dance studio. And so exposing all of these kids to different things that they maybe wouldn't have gotten a chance to do before is a lot of what we do at our center. And I like to add that we then drive the kids home at night and drop them off at their homes so that the parents can feel safe that their kids were in a safe environment and were returned home safely with a full belly, with their homework done, and with success. And I would also just touch on our health clinic as well. Our health clinic is a free health clinic in Highland Park, Michigan. That we do accept insurance there now. We just started accepting insurance, but we also have all sorts of free services there. We've started new programs there in the last year. We started a program called the First Week Program, where we work with expectant mothers and mothers of newborns to provide resources and help with things that maybe they did not have or had not learned before. We have an event once a month called Wellness Wednesdays, which is focused on the women in our community and providing resources that are exclusively targeted to them and their needs. And so we actually just threw our first ever baby shower on Sunday. We had 32 expectant mothers in, and we had a wonderful baby shower to provide them a lot of the resources that they will need as they move forward in their life. And so those are a few examples of resources that are available, and all of it is free of charge. Our after-school programs, our health clinics, our other programs that we run. We have a program where we give away bicycles to those in need in our community. We realize that the homeless community uses bikes to get around and a lot of transportation, and so we said, well, let's try to help provide more bicycles to those in need. So we have a lot of different ways that we can impact people throughout Metro Detroit.
Yeah, nearly 17 years, or actually over 17 years at this point now, with it being founded around the time of the Super Bowl, that S.A.Y. Detroit has been doing this amazing work in the Detroit area. And Richard, and I know you're relatively new to the organization, but just what sort of an impact has S.A.Y. Detroit had in Detroit in these 17 years plus?
Well, I like to think that we've had quite an impact so far, and we have a long way to go. One thing we heard recently about our Say Detroit Play Center in Detroit is the values of the homes in the neighborhood that we're in have started to go up a bit. And we like to think that having our play center in the middle of a neighborhood at 7 Mile and Van Dyke is really an anchor for that community there. The Osborne neighborhoods, Osborne High School is nearby, and that we've provided an anchor for a lot of the families that live in that area. But, I was just doing some quick math, Tyler, before we jumped on this call, and we have over 100 kids a day come through our center every day. And, for both the school year, and then we do a 6-week summer camp as well. And just doing some quick math, that's over 20,000 young people that come through our center on an annual basis. I just received some reports from our health clinic, and we had over 3,500 patient visits last year at our health clinic. I didn't mention before, but our clinic also has a pharmacy where everything is free at the pharmacy. And we did well over $100,000 in prescriptions last year at our health clinic as well. So, we are just starting to really figure out how to measure our impact in a better way. But one of our programs I didn't touch on before is called Working Homes, Working Families, where, again, Mitch heard a lot about the blight in Detroit and all of these abandoned homes. And he thought, well, wait a minute, we also have a homeless problem and we have all these abandoned homes. Is there not something we can do with this? And so we started a program called Working Homes, Working Families, where we renovate formerly empty homes, and we provide them to a family in need that fell on hard times for whatever reason. Again, we all can't control the things that happen to us. And I like to say we've given away over 50 homes through that Working Homes, Working Families program over the last 10 years. So I know we've had a great impact so far, and I like to think that it's just going to continue to grow exponentially.
More information can be found on saydetroit.org, or go to sharedetroit.org to find more information on S.A.Y. Detroit and over 300 other charities and nonprofits. Richard, thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And again, thank you to our partner, Share Detroit. They're a wonderful source of information for volunteers, which we need a ton of. And feel free to visit us as well, as Tyler mentioned, saydetroit.org. And we're always looking for helpers and volunteers. So